So, what happens when science and the law have a complete head on collision? When a DNA test gives you a clear, definitive biological answer, but the legal system hands you a completely different one and it comes with lifelong financial consequences. Today, we're going to break down one of the most complex and honestly controversial issues in all of family law.
And look, this isn't some hypothetical thought experiment. This is a real life legal paradox that thousands of people are facing right now. You've got a piece of paper from a lab saying you have zero genetic link to a child, but then you've got another piece of paper from a court saying you are absolutely financially responsible for them. I mean, how is that even possible? Okay, let's dive in.
All right, first things first, we have to get our heads around the core paradox here. This isn't just about a simple mistake or a clerical error. No, this is a fundamental clash between biological fact and a legal decision. And as you're about to see, the law has its own rule book for defining what a parent is, and that can lead to some truly shocking outcomes.
The whole issue really kicks off right here with this term, misattributed paternity. It's actually a pretty neutral term for a situation where, and this could be for any number of reasons, from an honest mistake to, yes, deliberate deception, a man is named as the biological father when he just isn't.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting because the law basically splits the idea of a father into two separate roles. You've got the biological father, the progenitor, which is all about genetics, plain and simple. But then you have the legal or social father, and that's defined by things like legal documents and the role he's played in the child's life. And believe me, the courts often put a massive amount of weight on that second column.
And this is the fundamental reason why. The entire legal system really operates on this principle called the best interest of the child. So courts will often argue that completely upending a child's financial and emotional stability, even if that stability was based on a biological lie, could actually cause more harm than good. For the law, finality and stability can and often do take priority over the truth. So, how does this principle, this idea of prioritizing a child's stability, get baked into an almost unbreakable legal fortress in the United States? Well, a lot of the time it comes down to a single, incredibly powerful piece of federal law, one that makes changing a court's decision, even with rock-solid DNA proof, next to impossible.
The story actually starts back in 1986. A big TV special aired that got the whole country talking about child support enforcement. It was a huge deal. So, in response, Senator Bill Bradley introduced an amendment specifically designed to make child support orders totally ironclad. It passed and was signed into law with massive support. So what does this law actually do? Well, its power is in just how rigid it is. It literally forbids judges from going back in time to erase or even reduce child support debt, no matter what the reason is. Once that number is on the books, it is there for good. It creates an automatic lien, it never expires, and it strips judges of almost all their power to change it, even in the most extreme cases. And this quote just brilliantly captures the unintended consequence of it all. Critics, like the journalist Diane Diamond, argue that a law that was designed to hold fathers accountable is now trapping men who, according to science, are not fathers at all. The very tool that was created to ensure responsibility now prevents the correction of a massive error.
This legal brick wall really forces us to step back and ask some much, much deeper questions. If the law isn't always going to follow biology, then what does it really mean to be a father? Is it just about DNA? Or is it about the role you play? Let's take a look at the ethics of all this. This is really the central ethical puzzle, isn't it? If a man has been paying for a child that turns out not to be his, does he have a moral right to get that money back? Well, bioethics research gives us a surprisingly nuanced answer. It's not a simple yes or no.
So here's the thing. The ethical argument really seems to depend on the man's actual relationship with the child. According to bioethics research, if the man's only connection was writing a check, no social contact, no emotional bond, then the case for getting that money back is pretty strong. But if he acted as a social father, if he formed a genuine parent-child bond, then that claim for reimbursement becomes, as they put it, less coherent. Why? Because he received the profound non-financial benefits of fatherhood.
And this really gets to the core of the ethical debate. Bioethicist Heather Draper argues that when we focus only on DNA tests and financial payments, we risk creating this really distorted and thin view of fatherhood. We're basically reducing a complex social, emotional role down to a simple biological transaction.
Now, this messy ethical problem is not unique to the United States, but the American legal approach is definitely not the only one out there. In fact, when you look at how other countries handle this exact same issue, it reveals a whole lot about their core beliefs on fairness, on stability, and on whether a law should adapt to new scientific truths. It really makes you wonder, is there a better way to balance everyone's rights here?
I mean, just look at this comparison. The United States, with the Bradley Amendment, is all about finality. Once an order is made, it's meant to be permanent and strictly enforced. Period. Then you look at the United Kingdom, where their law commission has a built-in mission to constantly review and reform laws, to try to keep them fair and up to date. It's really a clash between rigidity on one side and flexibility on the other.
So, when you put everything we've talked about together, the legal finality, the deep ethical questions, the different ways countries approach this, it all comes down to this. The stakes here are incredibly high. We're talking about financial debts that can last a person's entire lifetime. We're talking about huge impacts on mental health and the ability to trust. And it raises fundamental questions about what even defines a family. And ultimately, all of this affects public confidence in whether the legal system can actually deliver justice.
And so that's what we're left with. We live in a world where a simple test can reveal a biological truth with near certainty. But the law is telling us that that truth isn't always enough. And it forces us to ask a really tough question. When it comes to being a parent, where does responsibility truly begin and where should it end? Should DNA always be the final word? The answer is nowhere near as simple as you'd think.